anyone considering healthcare architecture, if they asked my opinion and advice on that, they would probably have at least a 2-day visit, because I have been so lucky to find that part of architecture. It's given me so many opportunities, so many wonderful colleagues. I just can't even explain the richness of that to me. The challenges, the intellectual challenges, the philosophical conundrums that you have to try to unravel and address, how personal it is. It is really an interesting type of architecture. I honestly do not think that I ever met an architect, and I certainly never met anybody that was a female architect. So I was not really aware that this was an option. When I was old enough, I somehow applied for a technical drafting program at the local trade school and loved it. I got very excited about it and decided that I wanted to go on to architecture school. But the discovery of healthcare architecture was very different. So in the middle of my architecture education, I became a patient. Most people do become a patient sometime in their life, so without getting into the complexity of it, it did create the opportunity to visit doctors maybe a little bit frequently at the time. So I did a lot of those visits with my father, and my father was ultimately the most curious person ever. So he would take it upon himself to explore the facility wherever we were and look for interesting places for us to go. And so in between appointments, we might go to the kitchen, we might go to the boiler room, we might go to the data room, we might go to the heliport and just look. We would go to different waiting rooms and we would try to figure out why some people sat on this side of the room as opposed to that side of the room, or in the blue chairs rather than the green chairs. And we just talked about it for no other reason except that somebody cared and was trying to create a distraction. But at the same time, it inspired me to understand that there was something very different about this kind of architecture. When you think about it as a building type, it is ultimately the most technical building type and the most human building type. There's really no other building type that has the extremes on both ends. You might think about a church. Lots of human happiness and grief happening in those buildings, lots of sacred ceremonies. You might think of a very high-tech industrial building with all of its requirements. But in hospitals and clinics and patient care areas, those things need to be blended together in a way that is completely seamless and that you're not compromising one side or the other. Doing healthcare in tribal communities is just about the most honorable thing I've ever been asked to do. It's truly a privilege. Each time folks ask me to come in their community and help them design a healthcare facility, it really is a process of true immersion travel, not going in with any preconceived notions about what you might see and what you might find, and then trying to, with lots of respect, give those things back inside of the architecture. And what I mean by that is they each are very, very different. If you have a lot of preconceived notions about what you might see, you might miss those things. And it's very exciting to see and witness those kinds of differences and then try to capture them inside of the architecture. So it might be that someone might share with you a special ceremony that has to do with how they might walk or move through a space, what that might mean to their own healthcare. Maybe it's a prayer walk, maybe it's some other important sequence that means something to that place. And you can somehow build that into your healthcare facility. So it has meaning. Oftentimes we're able to capture a lot of cultural artifacts, cultural expression, whether it's through materials that are important to that community, or images, language, representation, all kinds of different details or beautiful small symbols that you can bring in that truly make a place represent that group of people. And that's very exciting to do because that contributes to healthcare. Every rural community is very different. So boots on the ground understanding of that place the best you can, taking the time to get to know it, What's the economy? What's the demographics? What are people like? And that just gets blended into your project, and the outcome is far more successful, fits in that place, serves those people, enriches that community. If folks are very empowered by what they see when they come into a healthcare facility, makes them feel good, they are a better patient, they are far better at receiving care, and the outcome is typically better. So why not have your building do that? For one reason or another, the percentage of women involved in healthcare is quite high compared to other sectors of architecture. So when I step into those meetings and conferences, I'm never the only woman in the room. And not only are there other women like me, but there are real, true pioneers of healthcare design, like Joan Saba, Jean Ma, Connie McFarland, others that have paved a way for all of us to follow and continue to do so. And women flourish within healthcare design. They just do. I haven't ever found a barrier that I couldn't overcome. If my work is good and I am fair and honorable to whoever I'm dealing with, I would think they would judge me on that. I would hope so. Becoming FAIA was tremendously meaningful for me because it was an honor given to me by my peers. I was encouraged to do that when it was maybe not something I considered myself worthy of. Just the sacred nature of it, the history of it. And it happened in 2016 when I became fellow that Denise Scott Brown had been honored that same year. So not only was I privileged to receive fellow myself, but to walk across the stage after someone of that level of accomplishment was kind of immeasurable. It's easy to talk about math and art and science and the types of things that students might get in school. And those are important things, obviously. You want them to be well-rounded. But it's really important to be curious, to ask your parents to slow down the car when there's a construction project, because you want to look and ponder, why are they doing like that? Always be exploring and being willing to learn new things is something that I always encourage. General skills like good listening, being collaborative, being willing to work with others, but also standing up for your beliefs and sharing them respectfully is very important. To set ego aside and really not let that rule you. That can keep you from being open to other people's ideas and maybe keep you from admitting when you don't know an answer, when that's really okay. Take a moment when you're working on projects to try to put yourself in the shoes of not only the patient, but the provider, the caregivers. You can talk to patients. You can ask a nurse if you can follow in his or her footsteps for the day. You might go in the middle of the night and watch and observe how they actually work. It's very easy to do that. And I think they feel quite complimented that you're asking for that kind of level of detail and you're that committed. My legacy to the profession is hopefully that some folks that have been ill found that the place that they received their care was better than they hoped, and that their experience was better because of it. It's pretty simple. The wonderful hidden beauty of healthcare architecture is that you are really truly helping people. There's not a lot of types of architecture where you can say that you've had that kind of a contribution to someone's life. It's pretty rich, and you're pretty lucky if you get a chance to do it.